Yeah, I'm definitely gonna emphasize networking. When I was starting out trying to find my first internship, I was using so many different sites that are out there, like Glassdoor, Indeed, LinkedIn. More recently, I started doing LinkedIn alerts. So on your LinkedIn page, you can actually set an alert if you're looking for like a marketing internship. You can set that, and literally every single day at the same time, you'll get a list of what marketing internships are out there. But for me, a lot of my internships, I did three internships and they were all through networking and they all kind of like flowed into one another. What surprised me most, I guess, was in my very first internship was to find out that I wasn't the only person there that got there through a referral. Everyone was a referral. All 15 interns at the company knew someone that helped them get there, which surprised me because I felt a little bit guilty. I was like, oh my God, like, I feel a little bit guilty that I got here through a referral. Other people must have worked so hard, but everyone was there through a referral. So definitely networking. And I would definitely say make sure your LinkedIn connections are greater than your Instagram followers. That's super important. It's all about who you know, especially depending on industry. And then my second internship over this past summer was at NBC, and I was really surprised to find that I wasn't the only one that got placed there through a foundation that was a partner of the company. So a lot of other interns got placed there, and they even said like their acceptance rate is, this similar to Harvard, like getting into Harvard. And I had applied to NBC multiple times before the IRTS Foundation actually placed me there. So that's the other thing I would do is definitely research some foundations and organizations that are looking to help college students get their foot in the door at some of these big companies that you guys want to work at.
Right. And we did send out information about the IRTS fellowship program. So for those of you that have seen it, you should definitely consider applying. Thank you. Lisa Monet.
So my current internship that I started in July, I got through LinkedIn. So I had applied for maybe about 10 or 15 internships and I finally got an interview. So this one definitely took a lot more persistence than my first one. Because my first internship, I was lucky enough to get the opportunity through networking. One of my professors knew I was looking for an HR internship, and it just so happens that the HR director for this particular company was one of his former students. So he was able to recommend me, and the interview process went very well, and I was given the opportunity. So I definitely think like networking is also important, but also if you're going the route through LinkedIn, you'll never give up. Just keep putting your application out there because eventually something will come.
Thank you. Matt, what were the tools you used?
Yeah, so I really used, all the tools that were at my disposal, like, LinkedIn, PDP events, career fairs, any company that was coming to a career fair, I would make sure to apply because, it sounds cliche because everyone's saying it, but I can't really stress enough how important networking is. Because these companies, especially these large companies, in the North New Jersey area near FDU, these recruiters, their one job is to eliminate as many applications as possible, to just get it down to a handful that they're going to interview. It could be 5, 10, 15, 20, whatever it may be. So you want to do everything you can to kind of get your name out there because, you could have the same exact credentials as someone else who is applying, but what can separate you is them knowing your name. So what I do is, say I'm applying to I'm applying to an internship at Unilever, right? I'll apply on their website or through LinkedIn, whatever it may be. And then I'll look up a recruiter on LinkedIn. I'll message them and I'll say, my name, my resume, just to kind of get my name out there. But it's important with networking. There's two things. Networking will only get you so far. You really have to have those skills that are in the job description. And two, there's a difference between persistence and being annoying. If you're too annoying to recruiters, constantly sending emails, constantly messaging on LinkedIn, then they may just forget about your application altogether. So those are just two other important things to consider.
Thank you. Ram, what tools did you use? You're on mute.
Sorry. So for me, I personally used a lot of Handshake. I found that as my primary resource because it was really tailored to what I wanted to in my internship. So I could have sent all the companies that were essentially for my major were on that website, neatly laid out just for me. And the help that I had gotten from networking, as everybody else has mentioned, was key. Not just networking within knowing people within the company, but through the advising office, you know, Paige, Mary, and Pat have been there for a long time. They have a lot of connections. So, you know, go in, reach out, you know, make a relationship with them. And obviously, you know, they'll give you some great advice, and you can, you know, leverage that advice in multiple ways. But I would make sure that you definitely utilize the internet and the resources that we have today that a lot of people didn't have back in the day. It's a very, you know, important tool. And you can also use your LinkedIn as your, you know, as a like, you know, apply from there, but make your homepage on LinkedIn as sort of your resume. It's very useful to have that. And you can see, you know, where you want to, you know, improve, and use that website as sort of your base as to what you want to do, and find others that are in that same field as you. As you know, Asha said, make sure you have more LinkedIn followers than you do, or connections than you do Instagram followers. And I think, you know, that it's very true. You want to be, as you're getting older, you want to be more in the professional world, and make sure that you have all the resources, the professional resources that you need.
Great. Matt, you actually mentioned job descriptions. So I'm going to ask you, was the internship job description accurate, or was it different?
Usually, you know, they're pretty accurate. I had 5 internships, so I've had some that I really like and some that I really hate, some that the description was completely off. But with the description, that's something you can always ask about in your interview as well. But also, I would always recommend reading the description before you apply, because you don't want to interview and not know what you're interviewing for. So, for example, like if they want you to be proficient in Excel, make sure you're proficient in Excel. Or if they want you to be able to model, do financial models or financial statement analysis, or use Python, make sure you can do that. I had one interview and I had to share my screen and complete a whole financial model, with income statement, balance sheet, cash flow. And, luckily I knew how to do that, but if I didn't, it'd be pretty embarrassing. So that's just one thing, really make sure you read that description before you apply.
Amanda, what about you?
Sure. I think this doesn't always happen, but my job description was spot on. My internship this past summer was with Nestle. I was a finance and accounting intern, and that HR department was so thorough and so detail oriented that I knew exactly what I was going to get into, and even had the opportunity to pick what project I was going to do. But my past internships, you just get whatever comes your way, right? You have a blanket statement of what you think your job duties are going to be, and you show up and you're, helping in this department. And I was a property management intern, but I was doing lease enforcement and inspections. And so it's one of those things where more often than not, it's going to be a job description that you, again, emphasizing, know the skills, be ready for anything in the interview. But if in fact you do get the job, be ready to adapt and be on the fly, and help and make a name for yourself any way you can.
Great, thank you. Matt, I'm gonna come back to you and ask you a follow-up question. You said you had internships that you really liked and some that you didn't. Can you, without giving away the company, can you tell us why you didn't like one of your internships?
Yeah, this was, it was a public adjustment company. If anyone doesn't know what that is, it's like a public adjuster. What they'll do is, say you have damage to your home and the insurance company gives you $5,000, but you think you deserve more. So a public adjuster will fight for the insurance company and get you more money. And in a perfect world, say they get you $10,000, right? And they'll take a little bit more of that extra money. But what this company did, they took 30% no matter what. So say they got you $6,000 instead of $5,000, they would still take 30% and you would end up with less money. And a lot of people would just call and complain. And I didn't really think, it was too ethical. So I actually quit like 2 months in, but it's always, it's a learning experience. And I just didn't really like the company's values.
But that's part of an internship, right? The good and the bad.
Exactly. You learn as you go along.
Great, thank you. So Ram, this is for you. What was like was there a big surprise or something unexpected that occurred during your internship that you can share with us, that you were able to roll with the punches, if you will?
So one of the biggest things, other than being online, obviously, there was a power outage that I had over the summer, and it was during my internship. And the internship is only 6 weeks, so really had to make the most of the time that we had. During that time, I really had to figure out what I'm going to do. I had no way to no way to do my work, as I didn't have access to my laptop. The internet was down. I couldn't go to the Starbucks or anywhere because we weren't allowed to legally. And so I made sure that I was on the phone. I was talking to my mentor, talking to my boss, getting all the information I needed, and just rolling with the punches. I obviously, there were some things I couldn't do at that time, but there was a lot of work that there was a lot of things I learned and a lot of work that I was able to do just via conversation through my mentor, and learning processes and how to deal with customers. I mean, not customers. How to deal with clients, let's say, that we were working with when I didn't have internet access, making some phone calls. And then I would, have to keep an eye out. And then obviously after a while, there was a place where I did find internet. I went to my father's office, and I, took all my stuff there. I luckily had all this information and all this work that I needed to do. I had like a written down Excel sheet, like on a piece of paper that I had made, and what I, wrote the formulas, and then, all I had to do was input them. But I couldn't access that at home because we were on their server. So it was very interesting to have something like that. But my advice and what I gained from that is, there's some things that you just can't expect, and there's nothing really anybody can do about it. So you have to really learn to roll with the punches and really just expect the unexpected. Something will happen that might not be, according to plan, and that's just, how life works. But you really have to stay motivated, stay upbeat, and keep in touch, communicate with your team. I know that's a big thing. Just because you don't have internet, that doesn't mean you should sit back and just say, oh, well, I can't do anything. Make that effort to go out and be pragmatic, reach out, because that's what is needed. That's what, is needed. That's what your boss will want you to do. That's what you should want to do. You really, the company is relying on you to do the job, and don't try to find excuses to not do work. You really just take it all head on and find a way. There's always a way, and where there isn't, you can always ask for help. It's okay to ask for help.
Great. Lisa Monet, what would you answer for the same question?
First, I just want to apologize for my dog in the background. Very sorry about that. But my current internship is completely remote. And, at first I was kind of concerned about how working from home was going to be. I was concerned maybe I would lose a little bit of the experience in fact, I'm not physically in the office, meeting with people. However, my third day in the internship, I got an email saying that I have a one-on-one meeting scheduled with the director of talent acquisition and the global head of talent acquisition for the firm. And that was very nerve-wracking for me because, I was talent acquisition intern. That's the field I really wanted to enter. And it was kind of a last-minute thing. And I'm not going to lie, internally panicked just a little bit. But in this case, it was a good surprise. And it reminded me, you never know what opportunities are going to come your way. You kind of have to be ready, all the time. And I just, mentally reviewed what I've learned about networking, and, I reviewed what I know to talk about things like that. And it went very well, but it was definitely a good surprise, but a little bit nerve-wracking at the time, just a little bit.
That happens. Yeah, that happens. A little nervousness is always good. Keeps you on your toes, right? Definitely. Okay. So Asha, what advice would you give to a student who's maybe a little overwhelmed by the process? They maybe haven't secured an internship yet, or maybe an internship that they think that they should secure. what advice would you give?
Yeah, definitely. So I like went back through my resumes and I have so many versions of my resume at this point, which is crazy to me because I never thought that that would happen, that I would have to update it this many times. But I looked at my very like first copy of my resume, you know, when I was applying for my very first internship, what did I put on it? And when I started there, I just took me back to when, you know, I was a sophomore in college and trying to figure out like, how do you land an internship? Like, I've only ever worked in retail. Like, I don't know, like if that's not really professional enough, like no one's really going to take me to the corporate level. But what I learned really quickly was that everyone has those types of jobs. There's these high up executives, they started somewhere. They didn't just become the president of the company. They were working, you know, in food service. They were working in retail just like me. They might have been a tutor. They might have been like an RA on campus. So definitely don't think that your jobs, you know, on campus or if you work in, you know, the mall or something like that, like definitely don't think that they're not valuable. It's all about how you position it. So a lot of the times in my resume, you know, to help ease my stress, I had a lot of different people take a look at my resume first, but they also taught me how to quantify my experiences, whether it was like tracking new trends or like I'm helping, you know, market these new clothes to these girls that are coming in or something like that. Like you really have to learn how to work with what you have, but definitely put those experiences on your resume. And if you're a sophomore or a freshman, it's okay to mention stuff in high school. You know, if you need a, you don't want your resume to be so sparse. So it's okay to, you know, mention that leadership position that you had in high school or what you did there. It's definitely appropriate. I always say like 2 years out about then, like definitely mention all that. Another thing, you know, that I did was I linked projects that I was doing in college to my resume. So they always tell you to send your resume in as a PDF, but you can also put links into a PDF. And then once you export it, they can still click it once they receive it. So I don't know if anyone's ever had Wenshu for a marketing class, but I had her my sophomore year. And in her classes, she makes us do these crazy, like long reports and these presentations. And in the, you know, during the semester, like, oh my God, it's so much work, but it was so beneficial because the whole presentation came together. She was having us use like these data processing systems to do marketing research. Super cool. I was a sophomore when I did it. I had uploaded the presentation onto a Google Drive where I set the like the share settings to view, and then I linked it into my resume. So when recruiters were getting my resume, I had a project section and I would mention, oh, like I did this project in a brief synopsis because I didn't really have other internship experience. And that was something that they pointed out and they really loved. And when I came into interview, I even had printouts of it because I would mention like, oh, like, you know, I might not have internship experience, but, you know, just this past semester, I did this whole entire research project on this hotel or, you know, on this market or something like that. And I would be like, oh, I also have a copy of it. So that really eased me because I knew that, you know, I had a lot of other stuff, whether it was papers that I wrote since I got into college or different presentations for those entry-level business classes. I started linking them into my resume. So that definitely like ease the pressure when I was applying because I knew I was doing something a little bit extra that other people weren't doing. I would also say networking with people that are entry level was huge. Something I am really close friends with a Netflix exec, and he has been in the media industry for years. Something that he told me is like, it's great that you're networking with me, but don't network with just the presidents or the EVPs at these companies because they're going to be retired or they're going to be dead by the time like you enter, which is morbid. But the point that he was saying is that the people that are really going to help you are the people that are entry level because and now that I think about it, every single internship that I've had has been an entry level internship. So I've been working alongside with people that are entry level. I was an ad sales intern and everyone that I worked with, they were in like the first 1 to 2 years of their career. So that's super important because they'll bring you on. And that actually happened to me this past fall. I entered at Fullscreen, which is the social subsidiary of Warner Media. It was a girl that was entry level. She literally started at Fullscreen probably 6 months before she brought me on. She said, I know this girl from the summer. I had an informational with her. Like, definitely, like, she's good. Like, give her the internship. So she told the manager that, and that's how I got that internship. So definitely network with the people that are about to start their careers. Anyone that you see, like if you have seniors in your classes, and definitely connect with the seniors that you see because they're starting to enter the job market. And come 2 years or a year or two, once you're ready, definitely reach out to them like, hey, like we were in that class together. It definitely helps when you have FDU to help bridge that connection. But yeah, that's definitely my advice to help ease the pressure when you're getting your first couple internships.
Amanda, what would you add to that?
Sure. I definitely think quantifying experience is very important, right? If you were, a retail cashier, you oversaw $2,500 in cash sales weekly. If you were a bank teller, you were able to reconcile your drawer every day. There's different skills. Transferable skills is a very big word that, people who recruit for internships look for. If you played on a sport in college, say that. If you volunteered, you piloted the volunteer group, and you worked at the church every Sunday, say that. Recruiters want to see people who have initiative and people who they can take a chance on, right? If you don't have that other experience, show that you're worthy of them giving you that experience. One of the biggest things that I kind of got bogged down a little bit is looking at the big picture instead of like quantifying and breaking it down into steps. I had 2 internships my sophomore year and junior year that were, very good, again, transferable skills, but were not in the field that I wanted to be in. Finance, I want to do corporate finance, right? So break it down and get organized, right? Go speak to Paige, go speak to Mary, go speak to Pat, anybody, and they'll help you take it one step at a time. Make a spreadsheet. I applied, I think this summer, but going into last summer, I applied to over 80 different internships, and I had an Excel spreadsheet with different columns, right? When the date I applied, did I get a response? When's the deadline for this? How many times did I follow up with the recruiter? And it just helped me keep organized. If you apply to 80 different internships, you're bound to get at least 5 responses back. And then once you get those responses, then you start practicing your interviews. Make sure that your resume is on par, and just kind of get ready and listen to what other people have to say and prepare for questions. I got into such a routine where there was one week where I think I had 4 phone interviews in a week, 2 on one day, another on another day, and another day. And you have a list of experiences that that you can pull from, what you've done. And I think just like being very, very well versed in yourself, and being able to speak about what you can do as a person, as well as what you want to bring to the company. I think that's very important. So organization was definitely a key, and then just really persistence. It took me 3 years to find a good internship, a solid internship, and now I have a full-time job from that come June. So persistence and like don't get overwhelmed, and just kind of trust the process, kind of thing, and it'll work out.
Great. Ram, what would you add? Nope, you're on mute.
Sorry. I would say that the most important thing would be to just apply to as many internships as you can. Then you can make a list of, have a list of what you find, which internships you want to go to, as like a top tier, middle tier, and and so on. So you'll have a broad array of what you want to go to. But my motto is, practice, practice, practice. That's the only way you'll get, more comfortable with the process. So by that, I mean, apply to as many internships as you can, and do as many interviews as you can. Interviews are the heart of the hiring process. And I remember, last semester, similar to what Amanda said, not last semester, last year, when I was a junior, I remember after the recruiting event, which I recommend that everybody go to. It's very helpful. I had applied to interviews with pretty much every company that I could, and I had an order of which companies that I found, but most that I wanted to work at most, and then the other companies that I would still like to work at, but they weren't at the top of my list. And from there, I went to each interview. I noticed that after time, I think I had about 50, I'm not even kidding. It was about 15 interviews in 3 weeks. And all my friends would be like, why are you wearing, a shirt and tie every single day? And I would just say, I have an interview. I have an interview. I have an interview. I would just say that every single day. And, eventually that's what became custom to them. They were like, why aren't you wearing your shirt and tie today? But that's what I really used for practice. And by the time the third week came along, not even the third week, by the end of the second week, I was really comfortable with these interviews. They became, more like conversations. And that's really what they are. It's supposed to be a back and forth. The first interview that I had, I was, a little bit nervous. I wasn't sure if I was supposed to be asking questions back. I wasn't sure what the format of of an interview was like. And so over time, I grew to learn what, the interview process is like, how to be more comfortable with this, with the speaker. And that's the advice I can give you guys is apply to as many positions as you can and go to those interviews. Talk on the phone if you have a phone interview, and make it worthwhile. You'll gain comfortability with the process, and that's the most important thing. And also the interviews, again, I can't reiterate this enough. They're not interrogations, they're conversations. So ask questions back. Don't just answer yes, no. The interviewer is not there to, he or she is not just there to jot down notes. They're trying to get to know who you are as a person. They want to know who they're hiring. And that's really what you have to take away from the process of hiring is like, you want to get to know the company as much as the company wants to get to know you. So that's the advice that I would give to everybody here.
Okay, thank you. So Matt, what advice would you give to a student who maybe has applied to 10 or 20 different internships and hasn't even had a nibble, and nobody's reached out, and sometimes it just goes into a big dark hole and there's no response at all? What would you say to that student?
Yeah, I know this sounds kind of cliche again, but really don't let it get you down. There's like thousands and thousands of jobs for every single major or every single profession. Beginning my junior year, I think I applied to over 50 internships, and and just this past fall, I probably applied to over 100 full-time jobs. And that's really not even an exaggeration. Go through my email. I probably have, we've all gotten them. It's like, thank you, Matt Corbett, for applying to this position. We regret to inform you that we did not choose you. So, it happens all the time. But when that happens, you really got to look at the whole process. Is it on my end? Is there something wrong with my resume? Do I not do good in the hire views? Am I not hearing back at all? So you really, you got to just analyze the whole process, and like I said earlier, follow up with recruiters. That's really important. Get your name out there, but don't kind of get into that black hole where you just stop applying. Make it part of your routine. That's what I did. It was just an hour a day, or 2 hours a day, or 30 minutes a day, whatever works for you. Just apply to jobs or apply to internships. And like I said before about the hire view, that's one thing that I can't stress enough, is perfecting the hire view or the one-way interview. There's a couple of different platforms that do it. But really perfecting that using Big Interview or Glassdoor or whatever it may be, because that's really how you'll get to that in-person interview, and because that's really where you want to get. But if you're not hearing back, maybe it's time to spruce up your resume a little bit. Maybe you need to get a LinkedIn certificate in Excel or in Python, learn how to code. And it sounds complicated, but it's really, it only takes, some of those courses are only 8-hour courses, and you take them, at your leisure. And it really, like I said, spruces up your resume. But just use all the tools at your disposal. Don't give up. Like, it sounds cliche, but really just keep going, and you're bound to find a job or an internship, because there's hundreds and hundreds out there. Just in the FDU area, there's, I think, over 100 Fortune 500 companies. So just keep pushing and just analyze the whole process.
Lisa Monet, what would you say?
So as someone who has definitely been in that position before, I would say don't give up. I've definitely been in Paige's office talking about how I sent out so many applications but haven't heard back yet. But the key is just to keep going, as well as, if you're applying and it's not working out, I would maybe take a look at networking. For me, when I was looking for internships, I made sure that everyone I knew who could possibly help me knew I was looking for an internship. So my professors knew, it was on my LinkedIn profile that I was looking for something, as well as, maybe take a look at the companies you're applying to. You never know, maybe you have a connection on LinkedIn that has a connection to that company that you could possibly reach out for, not necessarily, like asking them for interview, but just for advice in general, about how you can make yourself be a better applicant. So I'll definitely say, it's a little bit like kind of disheartening when you're applying so many times and you keep getting rejected, but you definitely just have to keep going and just know that there's so many different ways to get that opportunity, because a lot of times it's not always what you know, it's who you know. And you never know, there may be someone, that one of your professors or someone on LinkedIn that can help you just kind of get that first opportunity.
So a follow-up question, Lisa Monet. You said that you can reach out to somebody to just ask them for advice. You're not asking them for an interview for a job, for an internship, but you just want to ask them for advice. How would you suggest initiating that dialogue?
So I would say, just take a look at your relationship with that person. Maybe how did you meet them? If you met them through FDU, maybe through PDP, maybe touch upon, hey, I had a great time meeting you at this PDP event. I'm moving on to the next step, looking for this internship. Can you maybe give me some advice, take a look at my resume or anything like that? You can also look at maybe if one of your connections knows someone else who can be helpful to you, and see if maybe they'll be willing to introduce the two of you. So there's so many different ways, and there's so many people out there that, it's definitely possible to kind of just find someone who will be willing to help.
Thank you. So panelists, obviously you've all had different experiences and you've worked for all different types of companies. Can you say without hesitation that you are connected with all of your former supervisors and or managers on LinkedIn? You want to care to comment about that? How you did it, when you did it, how often you stay in touch?
Yeah, definitely. We want to connect with them on LinkedIn. Like, not obviously, I don't go on the first day and trying to connect with everyone on LinkedIn. But as time goes on, and like I said before, there's that boundary between persistence and being annoying. But as time goes on, you develop relationships. Obviously, this summer, I'm sure, like everyone said, they worked from home, but just connecting on LinkedIn, because what I always say, the most important thing about networking is don't network only when you need to. Even when you have an internship, still keep up that networking and talk to as many people as you can. So, and update your LinkedIn, like with your network, let them know what's going on. So when the time comes that you do, need that connection, you're in touch with them, and hopefully if you developed a good relationship, then someone will be there to help you out.
Great. Amanda, what would you say?
Yeah, same. Again, persistence versus overbearing. But yeah, I think there's some connections that you can on LinkedIn where you can do it, but without even knowing the person. But like your manager, you develop a relationship, get them on LinkedIn. Sometimes they'll connect with you first, which is even better. And then once you do connect, it doesn't even have to be LinkedIn. Once you do make those relationships in the office, professional relationships, follow up, say happy holidays, happy new year. Keep them up to date with what you're doing. Just a little check-in here or there. Again, like Matthew said, it was very important to not just network when you need to. It's an ongoing thing, and just keep up to it. And it's also like a personal thing too, like just saying hey and getting to know people. It's about like building relationships kind of thing.
Asha?
Yeah, definitely. I typically, like, I've had managers at different age ranges, so you kind of figure out like what works for you. My most recent manager at Fullscreen, she was really close to my age, and she was really cool about it. Like, she texts me still today, and she literally, like, right after 2 weeks after I left the company, she was leaving it too for a different position at this other amazing brand. And I was like, if you ever need an intern, like, I'm still in school, like, I have this 4+1 year going on, like, let me know. And she's like, definitely. So we're tight like that. So that's really nice to, like, definitely develop that connection, especially considering that the whole internship was remote. So I would definitely say, like, staying connected on LinkedIn is super important, especially because I think that this coming summer, internships might still be remote. So you definitely want to like work on that digital presence and, building that relationship with your manager. But I also keep in touch with just people that I've had informationals with. As soon as after I have the informational with them, I'll connect with them on LinkedIn. And then like kind of keep them in the loop. Like I send out a newsletter at the end of every semester. So at the end of the summer, at the end of the fall, spring, when I have a little time to recoup and reflect on like what an amazing summer I had or what an amazing semester I had, I'll just send them like a 3-page newsletter. Here are some of my highlights. It could be my favorite book of the semester, what I did, or a class that I like passed or something like that. Even if they don't respond to you, it's still a really great idea because it still hits their inbox and they're like, oh, like I remember her, like she interned here like 2 summers ago. And to me, it was surprising because people, even if they didn't respond to me, they still remembered me. So they would reach out to me sometimes and even be offering to help me in the end. So it's really nice to reach out to your managers.
Great. I think we have a related question, Pat.
Yes, from Jasper, a finance major on the Metro campus and our fabulous student worker. What should you do if they accepted your invitation on LinkedIn, but did not respond to your message?
Who wants to answer that?
I would say just follow up and send the message again. That happened to me at this summer. I had an internship at HSBC, and there's the global economist. His name was Jose Rasco, and I emailed him 3 times. And the 3rd time, he gave me his like personal number, and we ended up talking on the phone for a couple times actually for probably an hour. The worst thing they can do is not answer. And then after the 2nd or 3rd time, you just accept they're not answering and move on. But the worst thing that can happen is that they don't answer. So I wouldn't be too nervous or afraid to message them again.
Well, the one thing I would just add to that is we talk about using LinkedIn regularly. There are a lot of professionals who don't look at it as often as we hope that they do. So I have the app on my phone, so I'm totally connected to it. I suspect some of you do too, but you have to assume that most professionals are maybe looking at it once every 3 weeks, once every 6 weeks, and not everybody's as connected to it as we want them to be. So sometimes if you hit them again, it'll get to the top. Ram or Lisa Monet, do you have anything to add about staying connected with your managers or other colleagues?
Right. So, in terms of LinkedIn, I would say it's, definitely a great tool to use. And yeah, you should always, I stay in touch with some of my mentors from my internship over this past summer. And today I actually, just received a text from my manager, and we will have a conversation. We're having a conversation, and it's just having these connections. You never know when it's going to happen. A lot of the times, I get a text out of the blue, and it's a great thing, and it's reciprocating. This communication. You reach out to your fellow peers, whether it be someone who you work with on a team, or someone who was, your boss to some extent. You should reach out to them, let them know how, ask them however, how they're doing, and they'll reciprocate. You want to keep a good relationship with everyone you've worked with, and like everyone says, you'll hear this word the most tonight, networking. You want to keep these connections for essentially for life. They're not. You want to have a human relationship with them. They're not just people you work with and then you go home and you never think about them again. No, you should want to integrate them, into your life. And that's how I view these relationships. And I think it's just to add on to that answer to that question. If you reach out to people and they don't respond, the first time, like Matt said, you just reach out a couple times, and sometimes you won't get a response. I remember there was a company that I was dying to work for, and I actually went and I had my final interview with them, and then I never heard from them. I'd reached out, I had just never heard from them. I reached out to them twice, and then I made a phone call once. And at that point, I said, I'm not going to beg for a response. And so you reach out to a certain extent, reach out a few times, but then after that, realize your own self-worth too. If the company is not answering you, and you've tried multiple times to reach out to them, then there's a lot of other firms out there. Just keep on keeping on, as the saying goes.
Okay, Lisa, do you have anything to add, Lisa Monet?
Yeah, just to add, I always try to think of networking as more of a conversation. Try not to only reach out to people when, you need something from them. It's really important because, to maintain a relationship, it's really important to periodically reach out to them and just have a conversation. For example, I have a mentor who I, commonly go to her, when I need to interview someone for projects, and she's great. And, the holidays are a great time to reach out to people. For her in particular, her and I both love Broadway musicals. So when Hamilton was added on to Disney Plus, I included that in my message to her, and I used it as a means to kind of like reach out to her and start a conversation, just to periodically, maintain our relationship, because, you don't only want to reach out to someone and you're asking, hey, can you look at my resume next time? Hey, can I interview for a project? You want to make sure that, you're trying to build a genuine relationship with them and just have a simple conversation.
Great advice. And Happy New Year is a great reason to reach out to people. So feel free to use that. Pat, do we have any questions?
Yes, this is a general question from Jasmine. How do you figure out what field you want to be in? What should you do if you realize the field you were applying into isn't what you want to do?
Who wants to take that?
I can start.
Thank you.
I did my undergrad degree in business information systems, and it was more of it was a process of elimination kind of thing. I knew what I liked and I knew what I didn't like. My sophomore year it was more like, I need an internship to prove to future recruiters that I am employable, I'm hireable. Actually, I did the first internship and thought I wanted to go to law school, but that didn't happen. Again, finding what you like, finding what you don't like. Finished that internship, went back to school, took more classes, took financial analysis with Professor Ketza. And as I don't know why, but there was something about it that struck me. And you find what your brain likes and you find what you like. And then it was, okay, now I need to find an internship in finance. This is what I like. This is what I want to do. Again, hard to do. Again, you apply. No answers. Okay, now I have a property management intern. Property management, know nothing about. Apartments, know nothing about apartments. I live in a house. So it was, again, one of those things that you kind of come what's on your way. You take what comes your way, and you kind of figure out as you go. I wouldn't get locked into finding your major right away. You can go to grad school and specify. You can have a general business management degree and enter any field of business. I could graduate with a finance degree and I can get a marketing job. I think that's like a really good thing about the field of business, is you can kind of find your way, and every company needs a finance team. Every company needs a marketing team. So you can even find like what you like anywhere. So yeah. So again, taking what as it comes, more classes, and then kind of zoning in and really finding what you like.
We have another question from Stephanie. Do you have any advice for HireVue video interviews? Usually I prepare for typical interview questions. However, the HireVue questions are typically very specific and scenario based. What strategies do you suggest to prepare for these types of interviews? And before we throw it to the panel, I'm just going to do a plug that Paige and I are available to do mock interviews. We do this often with our students. In addition to that, I think Matt mentioned it earlier, we have a tool called Big Interview, because when you're doing it with Paige and I, it's face-to-face, but Big Interview is that awkward pre-recorded thing where you can record yourself and play it back. But now, Paige, back to you.
Thanks, Pat. Who would like to answer that question?
I can just give some tips that I've used. Definitely use Paige, Pat, and Mary as a resource for mock interviews. They have definitely helped me a lot in my process, and even with the higher view, especially with the higher view interviews, it's just extremely useful. You have the resource there, so utilize it. And one of the other tips that I can give is, or strategies rather, is you kind of have to just throw yourself, out there and maybe ask other people if you have that means, and ask them to kind of throw you random curveball questions, as a type of interview, and have them record you if you want, and then play it back and see how you did. It might be something unusual at first, but it really helped me. And I, now, given the current circumstances, a lot of people are using some form of higher view, whether it be Microsoft Teams or some form of digital interview where they're asking you a question, and there's no recipient. You're not really talking to anybody, so it's just pre-recorded. And I would say, those are the best tips that I can give. Use the advising office, use the advisors, and if you can get someone else to ask you some curveball questions, definitely use that as practice.
Anybody else want to add to that?
Yeah, so for the higher view too, make sure you treat it like an actual interview. You know what I mean? Like, make sure your lighting's good. Like, make sure you're professionally dressed. And also, what I always try to do is be personal. Like, even though it's a one-way interview, try and be personal. Don't sound like you're reading from a piece of paper. Or you're like a robot. Talk slowly, but also, it's hard because you don't know what they're going to ask you, but try and do your best. Like, go on Glassdoor, make a Glassdoor account, see what other questions other people have had. But that's why I said before, I don't like higher view because I spend hours preparing for an interview and they'll ask me 2 questions that I wasn't prepared for. But that's why it's just, you really got to do the best you can. Use Big Interview, but there's no way to really know the exact question they're going to ask. But just go into it like you would any other interview.
Pat, do we have more questions? You're on mute.
Yes, we do. Sorry, I was getting the big interview link for everyone. I'm not sure if it went. Did you guys get it? I tried to paste it in the box, but if not, Jack did. Thank you, Jack.
Jack just posted it.
Okay. After you apply to an internship, what is the maximum amount of time that it should take to get a response from a company? I don't think there's any one answer to this, but does anyone on the panel want to take a shot at this?
My rule of thumb is 14 days. If I don't hear anything within 14 days, then I assume they've won with someone else. 14 days after the deadline.
I applied for my Nestle internship in November, and I didn't get a response until February 2nd. So I, during that time, freaked out and applied to 100 other internships. And then actually once I got the email, the process was extremely quick after that. It was, applied November, got an answer February 1st, phone interview February 4th, another phone interview a week after, and then they flew me out to DC for an in-person interview. So it was like November, December, January, February, right? 3 months of absolutely nothing. And then in a month and a half, I found out I had the internship. So I think it varies hugely.
Here's one thing that came up today that I just want to point out to everybody. On LinkedIn, if you see an opportunity that you're interested in, it'll say 2 applicants, 72 applicants, whatever that number is. Don't get caught up by that. That's how many people applied through that particular mechanism. That doesn't include all the other possible candidates that applied directly from the website or maybe through Indeed or another source. So for the people on the other side who are actually accepting all of your applications, there's a lot to go through. And if they're really good, they might be able to sort. So you'll hear Pat and Mary and I talk about keywords, and you want to make sure that your resume has a keyword to a specific job description, but just it's timing. A lot of it is timing.
If I can just add on to that really quick. So my current internship, as I said before, is talent acquisition, and one of my roles is helping the recruiting team with our summer internships that we're hiring for. And I can tell you, because I've personally fielded through the applications, 1,500 people applied for just one position. That's a lot of people. So depending on the firm, depending on the position, it does take time, because that's over 1,000 people. It took me a lot of time to go through that spreadsheet, which means it took the recruiters even more time once I gave them the information. So, you know, sometimes you just have to be patient. It doesn't always mean that you're not going to get the opportunity. A lot of times there's just a lot going on in the background.
Thank you.
Another question.
Yeah.
From Vinny, after you apply to internship, should you reach out to the company separately if you did not get any response from applying?
What would you say?
I would say that what I have done that's actually worked was reaching out to people that worked at the company, and then at the end of my like little 30-minute chat with them is kind of just slipping in, by the way, like I applied to an internship with your company, or if they don't have them posted yet, like I'd be really interested in interning with your company. And sometimes just connecting with people that are already there, it makes it more natural. And if you have those chats before you like bring in that you want an internship at their company, it makes them a little bit more comfortable, and they could be willing to refer you for the position, which means that like they can put in the code or whatever, however companies do it. But it makes sure that like basically when you have referrals, it guarantees that your resume gets seen by the recruiters.
Any more questions?
I just wanted to go back, to the previous question.
Sure.
If you don't hear back, quickly, don't really get bogged down by it. I know some companies take a very long time to get back to you. In the meantime, you shouldn't just sit around and wait for the company to get back to you, especially if it's been a month or, over 2 weeks, you haven't heard from them. But at times, companies can take a while. I mean, there's a lot of logistics that go into it, and you really can't see the big, the whole picture. And it's, like Lisa Monet said, there's one person trying to go through 1,000 resumes, and that's probably after the system has already cut out a lot of people. And so I would say, don't get bogged down by that, but just keep applying to other companies. But you might still hear back with, after a couple of months. It's very possible that a company will take a long time, especially if it's a larger firm that has to sort through a lot more applicants, that, like a nationwide firm or something along those lines, rather than a regional firm. They'll probably, they might take a lot longer to get back to you. So just keep that in mind when applying.
But one thing I'd like to add, even though I'm not a panelist, and I'll ask one of the panelists to add on, is, and I only because I see this with students who come to see me or used to come to see me. If you apply to one position, don't stop and wait for them to get back to you. Correct, guys?
That's exactly what I'm saying. Don't stop and wait. You got to keep pedaling, and if they want to catch up to you, they will. But just keep going, keep pedaling, keep applying. And like I said before, you want to get those that practice in too, as you want to apply to different companies. And yeah, if you don't wait for that one company to get back to you, no matter how badly you want to work there. You have to keep pedaling and keep applying to other companies as well. I completely agree, Pat.
Great. Any other questions? Is there anything else you guys want to know from your peers? Nothing? Everybody did a good job?
I'm just checking the chat to make sure I didn't miss something.
Well, I will tell all of you, because you joined us this evening, I'm actually going to send you, if not tonight, first thing tomorrow, 30 internships that are in the marketing and finance, accounting, HR world that I was able to scrape from LinkedIn and Handshake. So I encourage you to really look at them and apply if appropriate. And you're getting them. We're not sending them out to everybody else. You guys are getting them because you took the time to come here tonight. So we want to help you. Any other questions? All right. Yes.
Just a quick comment. I just want to say that I thought the input, the information, the advice that the panelists provided was fantastic. I mean, really fantastic. I've attended not too many recently, but a number of events, and I think the currency, the advice they provide is so current and it's so relevant. And all of you, Ram, Lisa Monet, Asha, Amanda, Matt, you guys did such a fantastic job. And I think, we have many sophomores and many freshmen today. And again, if you have, a few juniors and seniors, this advice is invaluable. And, they show that if you do things right, you're gonna do really great. And I just wanted to mention, I thought it was great, wonderful advice.
Thank you. I will, on behalf of our panelists, put it out there that if you want to speak to them on a one-on-one basis, if there's a specific question that you didn't want to ask the group, feel free to reach out to me or Pat, and we can put you in touch with our panelists. So feel free to do that. All right, we need the QR code. Thank you.